Regardless of your skill level, by the end of this video, you're gonna learn how to win 10 times more games in College Football 26. And I've made thousands of dollars along the way, beaten some of the best pros in the world, and coached hundreds of players to get better on victoryformation.gg. So I can guarantee you this video is as legit as it gets. And you won't regret sticking around for the entire video because the tips get better and better. In the first tip, I'm going to show you how and when to custom stem your zones so you can create elite coverage defense. Now, this is a brand new feature in College Football 26 that lets you adjust the depth of your zones on the fly. To do this, it's actually really simple. You can press triangle twice to open up the defensive back adjustment menu. You can press the right on the D-pad twice to open up the linebacker menu, and you can press left on the D-pad twice to open up the defensive line menu. Whichever one you want to do, after you get to that menu, you want to select the icon of the player you want to custom stem or use the custom zone feature on. So I'm going to do the outside corner on the right, okay? So that's circle on my screen. And what you're going to see is you're going to have the option to press custom zone with the left bumper. So I'm going to press the left bumper, and then I'm just going to hold the left stick up for a while if I want to stem him really far up. Or you can also custom stem him down. So I could custom stem him if I hold the left stick down for a little bit, that'll custom stem him down. Or maybe I just want to custom stem him a little bit up, right? So I could custom stem him just a little bit up. So maybe right here, right? And one of the best use cases for this feature is you can have a cloud on one side of the field, maybe the strong side of the field, play really deep. So we could play like a deep corner or something like that. But then on the other side of the field, instead of just having a hard flat, let's say I still like the way a cloud plays, I can actually custom stem the cloud flat on the left and have him play really low. So for example, if you were gonna play a combo where they have a drag route going to the left and then a corner route going to the right, and you want to stop that corner, you're going to be able to stop both of those routes because you have those deep zones on the field and you're able to customize those zones. So that's just one use case with flat zones. One of the coolest use cases, in my opinion, is actually with hook zones. So what I'm going to do here is I'm in a cover 2 defense, right? And I know if I put a drag on the R1, the middle bunch receiver, I know pretty much no one's gonna cover him, even if I put a hard flat on or a shade underneath. But what you could do is if I put him on a drag, you could custom stem the hook on the left side of the field. So I'm gonna custom stem him down a little bit. So he's gonna sit about right here. So now when I try to go and throw this drag, I'm throwing it directly at the hook zone defender. So that's another great use case. But another cool use case of the custom zone feature is for stopping posts. So let's say someone is hitting you with verticals, right? And they're constantly throwing that deep post late in the play. What you can do is actually custom stem down the deep half a little bit. So now the deep half, you can actually see it, will play really low. So when I try to go and throw this post, he'll actually see it and he'll sit right on top of it and be right there to play it beneath the deep post. And your opponent will never expect that. So that's just 3 use cases of the custom zone feature and how you can use it. Now, it's not all about zone. So for tip number 2, I'm gonna show you how to properly use man shading, as the man shading system was also improved in College Football 26. So inside and outside shade will directly impact your defender's ability to cover. To shade your defense, it's actually really easy. All you have to do is press triangle or Y, then you're gonna be greeted with 4 different options. You could shade outside by flicking the right stick to the right. You could shade inside by flicking the right stick to the left. You could also shade over top by flicking the right stick up, or you could shade underneath by flicking the right stick down. So if I wanted to stop a deep corner route, what do you think I would shade? Well, I'd shade outside to stop the outbreaking part of the corner, and since it's so deep, I'd shade over top. So now when our opponent runs this deep corner route, you're actually gonna see that our player does a pretty good job at stopping it. He's gonna stick to him basically like glue throughout the play. But there is a problem with doing this, right? In general, universal shading is universal. So let's say this player goes on an in-breaking route and we're universally shaded outside, which means our entire defense is shaded outside. Well, this player is going to lose leverage to the inside and get beaten pretty bad on a post route. There's a huge window to throw this. So what will we do in that case? Well, you could universally shade outside and you can use something called individual shading. To individually shade on top of a universal shade, you could shade outside, for example, stop the corner route, and then press triangle or Y, X or A, select the individual player we want to shade, so Ryan Williams on the left, and we want to shade inside. So we want our defensive back to be shaded to the right in this case. so shade right. And now what you can see is we have everyone on the field shaded outside except the player covering Ryan Williams. So if they run this combo with the post in the corner, the post is going to be really, really well guarded, even though Ryan Williams is a higher overall than the defensive back. So you have at your disposal both universal shading and individual shading to make your man coverage so good. Before I show you the rest of the tips, and trust me, you don't want to miss them, I highly recommend you try victoryformation.gg if you actually want to be an elite college football 26 player. And there really is no better time, seriously, because our once a year sale is live and it saves you half off the regular yearly price. That means you get a full year of pro schemes and breakdowns for both Madden and CFB 26 for just $45 compared to $180 if you paid monthly. We even have 8+ tips and a full offensive game plan on the site, and it's only day 3. So if you're ready to join thousands of players taking their game to the next level with victoryformation.gg, click the link below or scan the QR code to start improving today. Now for tip number 3, I'm going to show you an extreme version of man shading called route committing, which lets an individual or your entire secondary aggressively jump routes based on your read of the offense. Now you can perform the route commit in one of 2 ways. You can universally route commit by pressing the right bumper and then choosing whether to route commit your entire defense inside or outside with the left stick. So let's say I were to route commit inside. The only problem with doing this is if they have even one outbreaking route, we know that outbreaking route is absolutely going to fry the player covering them, and they're going to usually get a big gain out of it, right? So I don't really recommend universally route committing. Universal shading is a much lower risk way of doing this, right? But what I do recommend is individually route committing. So let's, for example, say we want to stop that corner route again, okay? And the way that I would recommend we do it is we can route commit that corner route by pressing triangle or Y, X or A, and then selecting the player we expect to be on a outbreaking or inbreaking route. We're going to choose R1 in this case, and then we're going to route commit outside. So this is more aggressive than just a shade. So now if this R1 receiver goes on a outbreaking route, we know for a fact he is going to be absolutely covered like glue. And this is a more aggressive guess than a typical shade. And as you can see though, this player, on top of getting pressed, is stuck like glue. So just like that is the route commit feature. It's very easy to pull off, and I don't recommend you use it universally, but it can be very effective when you do it individually. Now it's not all about defense, as tip number 4 is custom stemming your offensive routes, which gives you the tools to beat literally any defense in the game. Now this was added back in College Football 25, and it allows you to adjust the distance of a receiver's route before it breaks. To perform the custom stem, what you're gonna do is press triangle or Y, your receiver icon, and then you're gonna hold the left bumper. And then from there, you can adjust the receiver's depth when they cut with either the left stick, which is yard by yard, or with the D-pad, which does 5 yards at a time. So let's say I wanted to drop him 3 notches from this very deep spot, 1, 2, 3 with the D-pad, and you can see he's gonna drop a little bit. If you wanna carry him all the way down, you can just hold the left stick for a little bit, and you can see he'll be a stem down all the way corner route, right? So that's how you can actually perform the custom stem mechanic. Now, if you want to use this mechanic to get big yards against the common defenses you'll play online, I recommend doing it with corner routes and post routes. So for example, if I wanted to be a cover 4 drop defense and get underneath the deep outside zones, but above the flats, what I would recommend you use is a stem down corner route. So I'll put a corner route on R1 here and stem him down all the way. So now he's gonna attack that nice soft spot in the zones outside of the deep zones and kind of beneath them as well, right? So he's in the perfect spot and he gets to that spot quickly. But let's say you were playing a cover 2 defense. So if you played a cover 2 defense, you don't want a short corner, you actually want a deeper corner. So if I were to set it up, I'd put a corner right on and stem him up a little bit. And this corner I know will get over the flat zones and beneath any deep zones. And just like that, you're gonna get some huge yards just because you know how to custom stem corner routes. And just like with corner routes, you can actually stem down post routes so they get beneath any deep outside zones, just like so, wait about a half second, and throw it beneath the deep outside zone. And you can also stem a deep post up a couple notches so it gets above any deep outside zone, just like this, and you can see when you throw it, you're usually gonna have a 1-play touchdown. Tip number 5 is to simply shade your yellow zones, as this will help you cover some of the most annoying routes in the game. To shade your yellow zones, you're just gonna do it like you normally would shade your defense. Some players don't even know that it actually affects their yellow zones as well. So press triangle or Y, and then you could shade outside, underneath, over top, really whatever you want. So in this case, we're gonna see the difference when we're trying to guard this whip route here. If we don't shade at all, the whip route is open, and it's actually open for a pretty sizable gain. But if all I do is shade outside and underneath, I want you to notice the difference when I try to throw this whip route. You can see the linebacker is right there to make a play. Granted, Ryan Williams has sure hands, so he'll catch anything, but you can see a very significant difference in how the hook curl actually plays. You're gonna see he sits right in the spot that he needs to be to go and make a play on that whip route. And there's lots of different examples like this. So for example, if someone wanted to run a return route, this is a great time to also shade outside underneath. That's part of the reason it's the most common shading for hook zones. If I shade outside underneath and I run this combo with a return route, take a look at how the hook zone plays. It goes in and then it sits right in the spot where it can go and make a play on the return route. So that's how you shade your defender. If you want to shade and guard those underneath routes to the outside, shade outside underneath. Otherwise, if you want them to stay up and in the middle, stop, early streaks, the seams, you can leave them exactly as they are. And I also want to mention, this isn't just for hook curls. This will be a very similar effect or have a very similar effect on vert hooks. For tip number 6, I'm going to show you how to throw your opponent off by disguising your defense. To do this best, you're going to select your play by formation. So I'm going to do dime 2-3 odd for this example. Then what you're going to see is if I flick the right stick, that'll actually show what shell my defense is showing to the offense. So a great use case of this is actually to show a different shell than you're calling. So I'm going to show a cover 3, right? So it's going to be in a cover 3 alignment, but I'm going to call a cover 2. So it's actually looking like a single high cover 3, but it's actually a cover 2. So they might think it's cover 3 and try to beat it with something like a stem down corner. But in reality, it's a cover 2, so of course it's going to be completely covered, right? Versus cover 3, that might have been wide open, but versus cover 2, it's completely covered. So that's a great way to throw your opponents off and trick them into thinking they know the defense that you're in. Tip number 7 is to set your depth chart, because if you don't, you could be missing out on some amazing speedsters that can single-handedly win you games. To set your depth chart, even before getting in a game, what you're gonna do is navigate to the Create and Share menu, go to Rosters, and then click Order Depth Chart, right? And then from there, you actually wanna look deeply at the depth chart of the team that you're using. So for example, if you're using Alabama, because they're a top team, you have 3 receivers starting. Ryan Williams, who of course is a cover athlete, he's a star. You want him on the field, he's 96 speed. But you also have Jeremy Bernard and Isaiah Horton. Now Isaiah Horton's only 89 speed and Bernard is 91 speed. But you actually have a 95 speed Platinum Shifty, which is a great ability receiver that you could use instead of one of them. And then you can kind of make the decision, do you want a better receiver or do you want another 97 speed receiver, right? And Alabama isn't the only team where this is the case. There's lots of teams with really, really fast players that simply don't make the field because they're not a high enough overall. So a great example of this is actually Pittsburgh. So I'm gonna navigate to Pittsburgh here. Now Pittsburgh, you can see, has receivers that are okay. 92 speed, 91 speed, 91 speed with decent abilities. But if you scroll down just a little bit, they actually have a 98 speed Platinum Shifty Silver Takeoff that's about 5'10", that isn't even seeing the field. So if I were you, I would make him my starting wide receiver. And that's part of the reason that people use teams and they're like, oh, this team isn't very good, but I see other people use them and it's great. The majority of the time, those other people are setting their depth chart and just putting better players on the field. For tip number 8, I'm gonna show you how to guarantee pass rush sheds while only sending 3 people. In order for me to show you why this is so important and that it actually works, let's first show you a bad example of how most people 3-man shed or only send 3 people and expect sheds. They just blitz 3 people. They have their user in a zone and that's basically it. And what you're gonna see here is when I snap the ball, the opponent is gonna have a ton of time in the pocket. Even though South Carolina has a very good defensive line, you're gonna see the Oregon quarterback can sit in the pocket for basically as long as he wants. And in order to not make this video, 20 minutes long, I'm just gonna throw it away. But you still may wanna send only 3 people and play all out coverage without giving the other team unlimited time in the pocket. So what we're gonna do is guarantee some 3-man sheds by blitzing our user and sitting relatively close to the line. Now you're gonna notice a night and day difference here. Now that I'm sitting close to the line, they're actually gonna try to attempt and win their shed interactions. And just like that, that went from about, maybe 10 minutes in the pocket, we threw it away, but like a minute in the pocket to something closer to 4 or 5 seconds. So all you want to do to guarantee 3-man sheds is to blitz your user and come close to the line. So that's what you're going to want to do to guarantee 3-man sheds. Tip number 9 is slot fade bombing, and you'll see this nowhere else. And it's by far the fastest and easiest way to get one-play touchdowns versus cover 3 and cover 4. So to set up this slot fade bomb, what we're gonna do is start by putting our slot receiver on a slot fade route by pressing the triangle button, the slot receiver icon, and then pressing L2. Now it's also very important to mention that you wanna do this where there's 3 receivers on one side of the field, and on top of that, you align those receivers on the wide side of the field. Otherwise, this simply won't work. Then what I'm gonna do is streak the innermost receiver, so the tight end in this case. Doesn't really matter what you do on the backside as long as it doesn't infringe on the main route combo. Let's motion it back. So you can just put a drag on, you can block your running back, it really doesn't matter. And then what we're gonna do is put a curl route on the outside most receiver. Now, if you're in a tight or a compression set, you can put them on an out route and it's gonna have basically the same effect. But you're gonna put a curl route on and stem that curl route up 1 notch with the D-pad. Then what we're gonna do is stem up the slot fade route 4 notches with the D-pad. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gonna look something like this. Now, if you're playing a cover 4 defense, what you're going to see is that the curl is going to bring down the outside third long enough for you to throw this slot fade wide open for a huge gain and oftentimes a 1-play score. Now that's gonna work very consistently, and if you can get a better pass lead, it's gonna be even better. And on top of this, I like to mention that this is the fastest way you're gonna bomb cover 4. It really doesn't get faster than this, right? So once again, put the curl route on, stem everybody the right amount of times, and wait. You only need 1, 2, 3, about 4 seconds, 3.5, 4 seconds. You're gonna be able to throw that receiver for a 1-play score, and that works versus both cover 3 and cover 4. Some people say it's a game of 3s and 7s, and that's where our final tip is red zone passing. So I'm gonna show you the 2 best concepts so you always get 7s. The first concept I'm gonna show you is called hitches on the numbers because that's exactly what it is. We're going to be putting a hitch route on a receiver on the short side of the field that is aligned with the numbers. But you can't do a regular hitch because now it's just a choice route. So what we're gonna do is put a curl route and then stem that curl route all the way down. So it looks something like this. Then you're gonna want a crosser or a slant route to go over that little hitch route. And what's gonna happen is that crosser will end up being wide open in the corner of the end zone, right? Just like so. Granted, that was a little close on that one. So I'm gonna run it a couple more times just to show you that this is basically 100% consistent, right? Snap the ball, wait about a half second, and what you're gonna see is that this crossing route is open in the corner of the end zone for an easy touchdown. So that's all you have to do, put a hitch on the numbers, have a route crossing the field over it, and you're gonna have a lot of very easy touchdowns. The next concept is even easier, and it's called the zig flat. So on the wide side of the field, you wanna put a zig on, and then you wanna put an out route or a flat route on outside of the zig. And the majority of the time, you're gonna see the zig route is wide open, and you can usually turn it upfield to get into the end zone or get very close to it. And it really doesn't matter what they do, even if they're in cover 2 and they shade outside and underneath, which usually means they've done everything to stop it, this zig is still going to be open and throwable. So you can throw this against literally any zone defense, especially if you're in a wide trips formation. If you're in compressed, it's not as good, but if you're in wide trips, just run that zig flat on the wide side of the field, and you're gonna see it's going to be wide open, and you're gonna get a ton of yards out of it, and end up in the end zone simply because of it. Now, if you wanna get even better at College Football 26, I highly recommend you subscribe to the channel, and click the video on screen for 10 more amazing tips.